keeping. We are recording this session today, so if you can keep your cameras and mics off, mics on mute, of course, and then if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or just send a message through the chat panel. Now, we are going to be doing a Q&A, so if you want to pop anything into the chat panel during the session, then we will answer all of those at the end. So good morning and welcome again. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction. So I'm sure most of you know myself, Laura Delaney, the sales account manager here at Envisage. And then we have the lovely Michelle Duford from Cycon, who are our business partner. Michelle is our account manager who we have worked with for many years now. So we have a great relationship with them and Michelle, which makes life a hell of a lot easier. So the objective of today, Michelle is going to demonstrate the enhancements of the Sicon distribution modules. Now, Michelle is going to go through just some of the modules today. So we'll just go down. So the agenda for today, we've just done the brief introduction of myself and Michelle. We're going to talk about what is Sicon distribution, and then Michelle is going to demonstrate some of the modules for you of the distribution. Then I'm going to go through the benefits of the Sicon distribution, and then we're going to do the Q&A. So what is Sicon distribution? The distribution module is designed specifically for Sage 200, which is like most of the modules that Cycon have, actually all of the modules that Cycon have. So it integrates with the stock and order process modules. You can choose from 9 separate modules. You don't actually have to choose all 9. You can actually just choose the ones that are specific to your business or would fit well in your business. So they are designed to fully requirements of the distribution business to improve costings, reduce stock holdings, manage seasonal trends, increase telesales, incorporate sales forecastings, and then suggested purchase order creation. Now, with this slide, you can see all of the modules within the distribution. So you have warehouse replenishment, material planning, reserves and call-offs, future sales, PO management, pre-allocation management, container management, stock matrix, sales order management, and then we also have the barcoding and warehousing management, which we have actually done a webinar previously. So if you would like the recording of this one to have a look, then please let me know. Today, though, all we're going to cover is the future sales, material planning, and the pre-allocations. So without further ado, I am going to hand it over to Michelle so that she can take you through this demo, and I will just stop sharing and then let Michelle take over. Okay, the floor is yours, Michelle.
Thanks very much, Laura, and thanks very much everybody for joining us. As Laura has alluded to, this is the second in a series of webinars that we have been running with Envisage, so that you can actually get a good feel for what our solutions will do for you around distribution. So I'm just going to share my screen with you, so hopefully there's not too many other things sitting on the screen. So if you can just confirm for me, Laura, that you can indeed see my screen, that would be amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, yep. Good. So if you can see it, everybody else can see it, and that's actually the main thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate our efforts purely on software. So no PowerPoints from me, guys, you'll be delighted to know, and I shall just minimize myself off the screen as well so that you can just see software. So like I say, we're going to concentrate today on 3 elements of distribution. Last week we looked at sales order management. We also looked at a number of other areas of purchase order management that we've also included into the distribution. And the 3 that we're going to concentrate on today, which is future sales, so looking into the future of your business and understanding what it is that you need to purchase, what it is that you need to consider by way of forecast, minimum stock levels, that intelligence that Sage gives us, but we have to delve into Sage to get it. So what we've done is we've created a set of functionality that sits over and above Sage to make that life nice and easy for you. So if I wanted to look at the historical usage of a particular part, and then I also wanted to then raise a forecast against that, that's what we've done with future stock. I'm sure those people that are already using Sage and using Sage stock know that you can actually add to a stock item list item. So if I just go in here and we look for our kettle as an example, so goes my kettle, and we look in the locations, you can set in here a minimum stock that is required. That minimum stock can then be reported on. What we're going to do is we're going to drive activity, and we're going to drive demand based on sales orders, forecasts, and minimum stock levels, so that the MRP piece of it, or material planning as far as distribution is concerned, can pick up that demand and show it to us, so that you guys don't need to delve into the system to see that. So we're going to look at ways of being able to manipulate the system and see that information in a single view in future sales. We're then going to run MRP, or material planning for stock in this case. We also have a larger MRP solution for anybody that's in the manufacturing space as well, maybe a consideration for you. But just from a purchase order perspective, looking at demand from our quotes, from our sales orders, from our minimum stock levels, from the intelligence that we have around our historical usage, what should I purchase? That's what MRP is going to do for us. And when it then tells me what it is that I should purchase, it will then tell me why I'm purchasing it. Have I purchased it because of a minimum stock suggestion, or is there a demand for it on a sales order? And if there is a demand on a sales order for it, I can then associate the purchase back to the sales order and create what we call a pre-allocation. Pre-allocations is a module in its own right. It's essentially there so that you guys would be able to reserve stock in transit. Standard Sage says, unless you go into negative stock, which we would never advise, that actually you can't reserve anything that you know that's coming in to your demand on a sales order. With pre-allocations, you can. So it's like a soft allocation. And then at the point of which that purchase order is received, it will make a hard allocation back to the sales order so that nobody else can steal your stock. That's what pre-allocations does. It's a little bit more to it than that, but we're going to see it in all of its glory as we go through the system. I'm going to kind of join those three things up together. So we're going to look at future sales first. We're going to look at why the system is going to recommend to me that I should purchase something. We're then going to get MRP to do that. We're then going to look at the pre-allocation at the end of all of that process. So let's actually start by introducing you to where distribution is. For those of you that took part in seminar number 1, or for those of you that want to actually view that, there is a video recording of it as well. You'll notice, or you will recognize, that some of these things we've already been through, but this is the bit, the option for future sales. This is about your business being able to look into the future and understand what you did historically to be able to then create a demand for the future. So we know against our stock items, we can have minimum stock levels. But actually, those trends for minimum stock levels don't change unless we tell the system, yes, change that. And we do that based on our own knowledge. We do it based on the fact that maybe we've got knowledge of a seasonal trend coming up. So maybe we want to increase our minimum stock levels, but we do that independently against each stock item. There are reports that you can run to see where you've actually gone below your minimum stock level, but actually it doesn't give us that much more. What we do is create an environment where it gives us a lot more. So if I go in to calculate my minimum stock levels, there's 2 elements to future sales. The first one is the calculation of minimum stock levels. It is, when all said and done, a big calculator, something that you guys would be able to drive out of Sage in many different screens in a single screen. So I can filter down what I'm doing in this screen by single item, by product group, by stock item, by manufacturer, by supplier. So if I just wanted to see all of the current minimum stock levels entered against all of the stock items for a particular supplier, I can filter it that way. I'm going to run mine for everything. And you'll see there's a little bar at the bottom of the screen that's running away with itself, looking at every single stock item and seeing what the current minimum stock level is set to. That's option 1. Option 2 is it's not only going to present that information to me, but it's going to look at all of my trading on that particular item. And it will look at the last 2 years average monthly demand, the last 1 year, the last 3 months. There are some calculations that you can enter into the system that will allow you to say what your average working days in a particular week is, and all of those lovely things, so that you can add a little bit more intelligence to that. But ultimately, it's just going to say to you, based on everything that you've done historically, the parameters that you have in place, and all of the stock items that you want to look at, these are your current minimum stock levels held against the stock item. And this is what the system is then going to tell you should be your new forecasted minimum stock level. And if it then recommends to you what that should be, it will also recommend what the change should be. So as you can see, I've got a huge amount of stock in here, which we've never purchased before, which we've not got any recommendations for. But here's a good example in my Volta roll of where we already have a current minimum stock level. We've got lots in stock. The forecasted minimum stock level based on the historical usage, which is all calculated for me over here, gives me then a change to what the system recommends we should do with that minimum stock level. And it's that minimum stock level that MRP will then pick up and base its recommendation to purchase on. So as you can see, not a huge amount of detail in all of my stuff, but where we do have changes, where we do have current minimum stock levels, which may be unrealistic. We might be holding a minimum stock level in the system of 150, and we've not sold it for the last 2 years. So why do we want to replenish to that 150? So that's basically what the system's doing for me. And if I want to take the recommendations for all of those stock items, as you can see, there's a huge amount in here, so thousands of different stock items, one single view, then I can simply say select everything and update the minimum stock levels based on what the system calculates the new forecasted minimum stock level to be. If, however, I also want to manipulate the system, I can actually go in and make amendments myself. So here you can see where I've got the forecasted minimum stock levels changing. So this one here is the same as the current, no different. It's calculated based on the historical usage, exactly that 2 should be enough. But this one's gone from 3 to 7, and that's fine. But if I actually know that there is intelligence coming and things are going to change, and I want to change that myself, I can actually go in here and set my own levels. So anything that I want to change pops into the system quickly and easily. So one single view, multiple stock items, filtered by supplier, filtered by product group, filtered by single item, should you wish it to be. You can also decide how many things you want to include in the calculation, what the date span should be. And if you delve into, you can see these things which are hyperlinked. If you delve into any one of those, you'd be able to actually then see the underlying detail that drives that information on the screen for us. So if I just click on that 18 there, that will actually show me the usage analysis, the lost order analysis, sales analysis, and purchase analysis, if I've got the rights to see that level of detail. I can then use this little utility down here, which is the distribution button, to view more information, item balances, previous sales orders. So I can really add intelligence to this screen. Am I doing the right thing by changing that? That's really what we want to get to. If we just highlight one of these items, and I just show the calculation that sits behind it, you can see what we're doing in the background. We look at the average demand per month, the working days in that month, therefore it'll calculate the average daily demand, stock cover days, which is obviously lead time and safety margin, and then it'll obviously calculate the minimum stock forecast for me. That's the calculation that sits in the background. So you've got some control over what that does as well. So yes, I can look at any one of those stock item parts and delve into it a little bit deeper. I can take the recommendations of the system and I can simply say, yep, select them all, update the minimum stock levels, and it really is that quick. And that will just simply write the new minimum stock levels back to each of those stock items. That will then give me a minimum stock levels which have been updated based on the calculations, based on my own input, should it be that way, and all of those stock items have now been updated to the minimum stock. Nice and quick and easy. So that's demand. Minimum stock level is your demand that MRP is going to look at. But in addition to the future sales, in addition to the calculation of minimum stocks, we've also got sales order forecasting. So this is really about, what do we want to do for the future? And do we want to base that on what we've done previously? And then if I do base it on what I've done previously, again, your employees, your people that are in the know, can add their own knowledge to it, but it makes it a quick and easy way to do that. So I can filter this list down, again by stock item, again by date range, and again by transaction type or product group. But I'm just simply going to say that I want to display everything again. And again, a little counter at the bottom is going to go away, and it's going to look at all of those stock items, and it's going to put into my forecasting utility all of my usage over the last 12 months in order for me to be able to decide whether or not I want to generate a forecast based on that historical usage, which again, MRP will pick up for you should you wish it to. So this is where I kind of should have gone into one that I've already done. As you can tell, it's doing its, potentially thousands of stock items. So it'll take a couple of seconds there just to run on the screen, guys, so that we can actually show you what the output is going to be. But again, filter it by product group, filter it by date range. You can run that monthly or you can run it weekly. If you run it monthly, it will show you the last 12 months. If you run it weekly, it'll show you the last 4 months in weeks formats. So that's basically what the system's going to do for us. We're really so close to being at the end of that, but we'll just wait for that to run. And while I'm doing that, I'll just show you those which I've already run. So in this view, what I can see is where I've already created a forecast, where I've already calculated what that forecast should be, and whether or not I have accepted that forecast into my MRP generation. So as you can probably see here, I've got a forecast for my saddles, a very eclectic company here. I do saddles and hinges. So those saddles haven't yet been, that particular forecast hasn't been generated into MRP, not a consideration, just something I want to work on. This particular one for my hinges, for instance, I've said, yes, that's now been included into the MRP generation, so that when I do run MRP, it'll be able to look at all of that information for me. So that's what we're going to achieve by looking at this screen here, which will again give me the last year's usage. And we can see literally, I've got a whole stack of stuff that I don't use. And there you can see I've got a few. My Lucozade Sport is a classic example. We sold 10 in February 21, 10 in March 21. We sold 327 in May coming in to the summer. That's the type of intelligence that the system's going to give us. And it will then give us an average usage. And I can then create a forecast for next year based on last year's historical usage. That's my forecast. But again, I can manipulate the figures as well. So if I have intelligence from my customers that say, yep, there's going to be, a huge amount of demand come September, I can add that into the forecast as well. And my forecast is also classed as demand in MRP. So we've calculated our minimum stock levels based on historical usage, based on what we think we want to know, and updated those stock items. In here, we're creating a separate entity called a forecast to allow us to purchase based on historical knowledge, future forecasts, and potentially what my customer gives us as well. So I'm just going to filter mine down by a stock item. That's going to be my kettle, good old kettle. Okay, and we'll just display that in here, and you can see where I have had that demand last year. So there you can see my average usage. And if I simply take that one, again, the kettle is actually in multiple locations. So again, it's literally going to show you by location where that demand is coming from. But we're simply going to take that one, and we're going to generate a forecast for my kettles. I can, as you can see, enter in figures should I wish to. So over and above what the system knows it to be. I'm going to generate a forecast for my kettles. It'll say this is your forecast total. This is based on last year's usage. This is what you think you're going to do this year coming up. So I can then save my forecast, we'll call it, and again, I'm doing it for a single item. It could be for multiple different items that we create a forecast. That's not a problem at all. But if I create my forecast name, I'm just going to call it kettle example, but it could be anything. That will then store that as a forecast. I can then view all of my forecasts and see which ones I have actually included into the MRP. There's my one. Let's go in and view that forecast. And you can see here, there's a little opportunity for me to say, generate an MRP forecast at the bottom. So again, all possible for you. So that's now been generated. That will now update, and MRP will consider that forecast when it goes in to do that again. So let's just close that down. Also in this view, again, enabling you to see much more information quickly and easily on the screen. I might decide that I want to add information to that, but by highlighting the actual item name description, it will actually present you with a forecasting graph. It will then take you in to show you what the transaction types were for that demand. So again, I've also got manufacturing switched on, so it will show me things which have been built, so works orders, components that were required for works orders. For us, you can see all of that demand was based on sales orders. And if you've obviously written anything off, you'd be able to see that as well. And you can even drill into that from here as well, so you can actually really see the figures. So it gives you an awful lot more information on the screen so that you can make informed decisions and create your forecasts and, of course, your minimum stock levels in order for MRP to be able to pick it up and run with it. And that's basically what we're going to do next. So before I do that, obviously MRP is not just going to look at those two things, those minimum stock levels and the forecast. It's also going to look at your standard Sage quotes and sales orders as demand. So how many have I got? How many have I got coming in? What sales orders do I have? What quotes do I have which I can't fulfill? It'll look at your forecast. It'll look at your minimum levels. It will then look at the parameters of the stock item to see, number one, is it included in the MRP generation? Number two, who's my preferred supplier? What price do I buy it at? What method of pricing do I use? Is there a minimum order quantity from that particular supplier? What is their lead time? In order for it to then say, okay, these are the things that you need to purchase. So what we're going to do is actually just pop ourselves into the material planning side of distribution. So all I'm going to do is simply run my material planning. As part of the material planning solution, there is also the ability for you to enter customer forecasts or import them in as well. So they become forecasts in the same way as we've just generated from the future sales. But what I'm going to do is simply run MLP. I'm going to exclude the manufacturing side. Like I say, I've got manufacturing switched on, probably not relevant for some of you. So I'm simply going to go in here and I'm going to exclude works orders. So let's just go in. I'm just making sure that I'm not actually running it for works orders because I don't want you to see everything. Just want to see my purchase orders based on all of my quotes, minimum stock levels. And so these are parameters that you set into the background and you can change. There is also a utility for you to be able to run the material planning on a scheduler, so overnight, so you don't need to run it. I can go in and show previous results, but I'm simply going to say runs, just so that you can see, again, how quick and easy it is for this to happen. I've got a few thousand stock items in my system. It's running through every single one of them. All of the parameters and obviously all of the demand that we've created. So all the sales orders, all the quotes, all the forecasts, all the minimum stock levels. And then it will then suggest to me what it is that I need to purchase. And that's what we want to drive out of the system today. However, there is also the ability for you to be able to see any warnings about purchase orders that might not arrive on time. MRP will do that for us, as you can see. There is also as part of the distribution solution, there is also another utility. It's also part of our barcoding solution. that'll do suggested stock transfers, warehouse to warehouse, based on minimum levels from those warehouses. But the thing that we're most interested in by way of output is the suggested purchase orders that we're now presented with. And earlier on today, I put a sales order on for some pencil skirts. For those of you that were with us last week, you'll know that I created a number of different stock items from our stock matrix. And I've actually created now a sales order that says I need these. I don't have any stock of them. So MRP is now picking that up as demand. It is also looking at other items and telling me what it is that I need to purchase. And you can see the preferred supplier comes through. If you've got a price, it'll come through as well. If you don't, you can set your prices as to how much you're going to purchase them at. Again, this is all going to drive off the back of this. That's a very expensive pencil skirt, that one. So that was £55. So you can see I can go in as the purchasing manager, one single view of everything that I need to purchase based on the recommendations. Purchase more by all means. Go in and change the quantities that you would like to purchase. But the reality is that this is what MRP recommends you purchase for these reasons. So you know we have a sales order. We also have some minimum stock levels, which we updated from our minimum stock calculations, which now need to be satisfied. So we know that we're purchasing these items because we've got a minimum stock level. We're purchasing this particular one because there's a minimum stock suggestion and there's a sales order. And on these ones, all a single sales order, as you can see, I'm purchasing these items for that demand. So if your forecasts were in there as well, you would also be able to see where it's recommending that it's a forecast suggestion as well. And again, you still have an opportunity at this point to go in and amend anything that you like. At this point, it's bringing forward the preferred supplier. But if you can see down here, that final item doesn't have a preferred supplier against the stock item. So I can go in and I can choose who my supplier is going to be. So it is simply just your purchase ledger. So it just makes it nice and quick and easy to stay in one single environment, take all of the intelligence from the system and create my purchase orders accordingly. And that's exactly what we're going to do. But if you want to filter down again by stock item, by product group, by supplier, if you were using other elements of our distribution solution for things like container management, which again we covered last week as part of our introduction into distribution, then I could also say, just show me everything that could potentially be on a single container. So there's a whole ream of different things that you would be able to achieve by running MRP, not just quick and easy way to put a purchase order together. That's what's going to be the result of this one. And I'm going to say, yeah, let's actually choose AMV Haulage as the supplier. Again, I can go back in, I can second guess that, I can take items out, I can again go to each and every stock item and second guess the decision of MRP to purchase that quantity by going back in and looking at the monthly trading figures, the stock item details, the future stock movements, understanding how much we've got coming in, what price we're buying them for. So it's still all of your buying decisions, but in a single screen. So we're going to go in here and again, let's just actually move ourselves across so that you can see one of the results at the end of this is going to be the pre-allocations that I mentioned at the beginning of our process, guys. So because I'm purchasing or going to purchase those pencil skirts for that sales order 5459, it will then give me an option to create a pre-allocation. Mine's actually switched on, so it will automatically create the pre-allocation, but you can make a decision as to what goes on. And pre-allocations doesn't have to be run via MRP. You don't have to have material planning to use pre-allocations. You can actually go in directly into the sales order and create a pre-allocation to a purchase order that you know is coming in. And again, I'll show you that in just a second. So end result is going to be lots of purchase orders, hopefully. So I'm just going to select everything. It will hopefully show everything in green to you then. By showing everything in green to you, it means it has enough information for it to be able to create a purchase order for you. If I didn't have a a price, or if I didn't have a supplier, or if it wasn't aware of what warehouse it normally went into, or any of those things that you need to create a purchase order, it will obviously highlight that for you and say you need some more information on it, which you can obviously add into the screen at this point. But I've got everything in green, so I can simply say create my purchase orders. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So I've got my system set up to create as many purchase orders as I need to based on the number of suppliers and the number of warehouses. So I will have consolidation switched on. So for me, it will most likely, assuming I've still got it switched on, create a single purchase order for everything from BGT, because it's all going to a single warehouse. So let's go in and create my purchase orders. It says, this is what I'm going to do unless you tell me otherwise. And as you can see at the bottom, it says, accept pre-allocation recommendations. So it will take that recommendation, we bought it because of this reason, and create my purchase orders for that, and therefore my pre-allocation, so that it's reserved for it. So again, I'm just going to select everything and say, yes, please, go ahead and create. It'll then go ahead and do exactly that, create all of my POs for me. So that's exactly what the system's doing now, guys. It does all the work for you. So a few seconds on the screen, and now you'll be able to see our created purchase orders, a variety of them. A few more seconds. As you can probably see, it takes an awful lot less time than you going in and creating them, but it's doing its work in the background there in order for it to then pop up onto the screen. And it's now created for me purchase orders 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, and 46. So I have an additional 6 purchase orders in the system. You can then, of course, set the system on its way to go and produce those POs, send them off to the supplier. That's nice, quick and easy. But again, against the purchase order, excuse me 1 second, some cough there. We'll be able to see each of these POs and an additional tab, which is the material planning tab, which tells you why you purchased it. So at any point in time, you'd be able to go back in and see that information. This was purchased for minimum stock suggestion, so no pre-allocation. That's just going to go straight into stock. So we'll just save that one away. And again, there's our frog release one. And again, why is it purchased it? It's for a minimum stock suggestion. We'll save that one away again. Okay, so I'm going to do these each individually just so that you can see where we're actually moving on with the system. All of the standard Sage stuff will obviously kick into play in there as well. More minimum stock suggestions, as you can see. And the final one is going to be for our pencil skirts, which, as you know, was because I had a sales order on 5459 that required that. So because I've got pre-allocation switched on, you'll also be able to see in the pre-allocation screen that we have allocated the stock on that purchase order, which we've created automatically, to the sales order. So a connection is there. What we also allow you to do is make amendments to those pre-allocations, and we also allow you to go into the pre-allocations menu inside of distribution, which I'll pop into in just a second, so that you can actually disassociate one purchase order from a sales order or one sales order from a purchase order. So if you have reserved stock for a particular client and a new client comes in that's slightly more important, we can prevent the pre-allocation on that. But again, that's all about control. It would most likely be a supervisor or a manager that would have that decision-making process to unallocate from one and reallocate to another. So you have the flexibility of it, but if you don't have the option to see it and you can't change it, then your pre-allocation is safe. So again, I can create new, I can go in and edit this particular one. All I really wanted to show you was the pre-allocation and the connection between the two. We now have our purchase orders in the system. As we know, that was purchase order 3841. That's my most important one as far as my system is concerned. So much more that we can do with material planning, but not in today's session, guys, because I really want to show you the final bit, which is, of course, that in my sales order list, There's my sales order 5459 for these guys at Canvey Island Catering who want all of those pencil skirts. It's a weird one, isn't it? So if I just pop in here and show you from a sales order perspective, we'll now be able to see, in fact, if I just pop in and amend it rather than view it, we'll be able to see my pencil skirts. Again, some of the other distribution stuff kicks in for me as well. So if you've seen that before, you'll know why they're popping up on the screen. And you'll be able to see now that each of these items, I do not yet have stock of it. So I can't allocate it to the sales order, but we've created an additional column here that tells me that it is being pre-allocated. So when the stock arrives, it will then move from being pre-allocated to allocated. So let's go in and actually see that again. I can view the pre-allocations from here as well, so I can see where they're connected, what purchase order they're connected to. I can go in and create more pre-allocations. So if I go in to, let's just go into this line here where there's no pre-allocation on that line. Let's have a little look and see what it's picking up and why it's doing those things. We're just going to go in and edit the item. And you'll see that we have the distribution button down here. And we also have our pre-allocations. Now, because I haven't pre-allocated that particular line to an existing purchase order, if I want to, I can go in and look for purchase orders for that stock item and create the pre-allocation myself. So if there were any purchase orders where there were the opportunity for me to make the association manually, again, without MRP, without any of those things, that's exactly what we can achieve here. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So we've now got a purchase order that's now associated to that particular sales order so that when it arrives, it will then become hard allocated. So I can see all of that and do all of that inside of my sales order, but we're just going to pop out of here. One final thing, and we're just going to go back in to the distribution menu where all of those modules which Laura introduced you to earlier on are sitting. I've got a very extensive menu over on the left hand side, so let me just collapse everything down so that I can actually see the Sicon Distribution one, and you can see pre-allocations has a menu option all by itself. So in here, when we go into our pre-allocations, again, I'm just going to search for everything. And that'll actually show me anywhere in the system. Again, I've got manufacturing switched on, guys. For anybody that doesn't have manufacturing, you can ignore the works orders and kitting side of this, but ultimately it means that I then be able to see the connection between any purchase orders and any sales orders which are already in the system, and I can go and edit them. I can create new ones. If I go in and create a new one, it's exactly that. I would like to create a connection for this stock item between any purchase orders and any sales orders which are on reserving the stock in transit. So that's our pre-allocation menu. We're going to complete that process for ourselves today just by going in to our purchase order list, because we're going to have a quick look at those POs which we created off the back of MRP. So here's my purchase order list. There you can see everything listed out, all the new POs that we put on today, as you can see. And we'll just have a quick look at our one, which was 3841, which had the pencil skirts on, I believe. So let's have a quick look and see if it was indeed that one. There we go. As you can see, that's exactly what it is. So there's my pencil skirts. Again, just to reiterate, material planning is there showing me exactly that, why we purchased it. The pre-allocations are visible from the purchase order. Other distribution modules are also in here as well for extended landed costs, for tracking dates against our containers, all of those lovely things which I introduced you to in session 1. But what we want to do, just so that you can see the entire process. Now, if you're going to be using barcoding and warehousing, obviously we could receive that in with barcoding and warehousing. It will automatically take the pre-allocation. So I could scan it in. For today's purposes, just so that we can actually get to that point, let's just go in and confirm my goods received for purchase order 3841. So we'll give it a reference number, some sort of narrative maybe. I'm sure you're all more than aware of what goods receipting will do for you, but as you can see in the goods received, it will actually display for you the quantity that's pre-allocated and where it's to pre-allocated to. Again, I can navigate to the pre-allocations from here as well, but we're simply going to go in and do exactly that. And there's a quick and easy way of doing this, but I always take the hard way. So we're just going to go in and say that we're going to receive these items in. One more in there. In there goes my items. And we'll save that away. So the stock comes in, and then we're just going to pop back into our sales order just so that you can see exactly what will happen at that point. But again, you can pretty much trust me, because it will also give me the option here. It says I'm going to receive this and I'm going to receive my pre-allocations. Therefore, I'm going to make a hard allocation to that sales order for those pencil skirts. So again, we could edit it at this point should we wish to. I'm simply going to save. That's all now done for me. Back into our sales order, just so that you can see no smoke and mirrors with this, guys. We do have a little bit of live software to show you. So we're just going to go back in one more time into our sales order, where we should be able to see that we have indeed got an allocated sales order for those items which were on that particular purchase order. You know, we've got one on a different purchase order as well, which I made another allocation for, so I can go in and do that one as well. So there's my allocations made, and they can be pick, packed and dispatched out of the door. So there we are, guys. That's the session this morning. Like I say, just to reiterate, there are a number of different settings that sit in the background of all of these modules to facilitate the way in which your business would use it, which may be quite different from one business to another. We, that's the royal we at Cycon, we at Envisage, would welcome the opportunity to speak to you about the modules in more detail. And if you would like a one-to-one session on any of them, you would be most welcome. I'm going to hand you back to Laura now. We'll have a look to see whether or not there's any questions which we can answer. And please feel free to ask any other questions in the chat box should you wish to. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Michelle. I'm just going to share my screen just to go through some of the benefits. Okay, let's go and share. Okay, so thank you everyone for today. So just some of the benefits. It does simplify and automate your distribution process. Now, as mentioned before, there are 9 separate modules. You don't have to go for all of the 9 modules. You can go for the ones that are suited best to fit your business. So if you do have any questions, or like Michelle has said, if you want to kind of delve a bit deeper into some of the other modules, then please get in contact and I can organize another demo one-on-one, and I'll get some dates off Michelle. So you do have one view of all stock usage. You can update all of the minimum stock levels at one time, which is great. You can use the historical sales to forecast the future sales demand, reserve stock in transit. You can determine when the stock is required based on the supplier lead time, and then you can automate suggested POs based on demand. So we will go next to a Q&A. I think I did see a question coming in there, Jenna. Is there anything there?
Yeah, Laura, there was one question. It's really for Michelle. Michelle, how does the change in minimum stock affect the maximum level? Isn't it important to review both minimum and maximum?
So we don't actually, we don't affect the maximum level in any way, shape or form, but you are right. Of course, it does require a review of maximum levels if you've got them set. In our experience, however, most people will adopt the minimum level only, not the maximum level. And that would be what we would recommend. We don't touch the maximum level. So I wouldn't have both, if that makes sense. I would have a minimum stock level, but not a maximum level, a ceiling amount. But I will take that question away with me as well, and speak to some of our guys internally to see whether or not there is a best practice for what we would recommend if you are using both minimum levels and maximum levels.
Yeah, because because we were just asked here, could you not end up with a higher minimum than maximum? Because there is one customer here who reorders to a maximum level, but he said we could discuss it with you separately later on.
Leave that one with me, because it was actually the thought that went through my mind as well. If the new recommendation was 200 and your maximum level was set to 180, would it override it? I don't know the answer to it. Great question. Leave it with me and I'll come back to you on that one.
That's great. Thanks, Michelle.
Brilliant. And are there any more questions there, Jenna? Just
not here, not in the question box anyway. No, not
brilliant. Okay, well, look, if there are any questions that anybody thinks of after this webinar, please fire them across to me, and I'll be sure to send them straight on to Michelle. But yes, so thank you very much for your time. And again, if there are any of the, I'll just jump back to this slide. If there are any other of the modules that you guys would like to delve in a little bit deeper, please get in contact, and by all means we will organize another demo for yourselves and to see kind of what it can do for your business. Okay, but thank you very much for your time. Michelle, thanks again. It's a pleasure as always. And
thank you. Always a pleasure, never a chore, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right,
thank
you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.